and thy mighty in the war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she, being desolate, shall sit upon the ground. Chapter 4. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, We will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel, only let us be called by thy name, to take away our reproach. In that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Israel. And it shall come to pass, that he that is left in Zion, and he that remaineth in Jerusalem, shall be called holy, even every one that is written among the living in Jerusalem, when the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. And the Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defense. And there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and for a place of refuge, and for a covert from storm and from rain. Chapter 5. Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes. And it brought forth wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, betwixt me and my vineyard. What could have been done more to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes? And now go to, I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down, and I will lay it waste. It shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds, that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. And he looked for judgment, but behold, oppression, for righteousness, but behold, a cry. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. In mine ears, said the Lord of hosts, of a truth many houses shall be desolate, even great and fair, without inhabitant. Yea, 10 acres of vineyard shall yield 1 bath, and the seed of an homer shall yield an ephah. Woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink, that continue until night, till wine inflame them. And the harp and the viol, the tabret and pipe and wine are in their feasts, but they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands. Therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge. And their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure, and their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. And the mean man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled. But the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and God that is holy shall be sanctified in righteousness. Then shall the lambs feed after their manner, and the waste places of the fat ones shall strangers eat. Woe unto them that draw iniquity with cords of vanity, and sin as it were with a cart rope, that say, Let him make speed and hasten his work, that we may see it, and let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw nigh and come, that we may know it. Woe unto them that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong drink, which justify the wicked for reward, and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. Therefore, as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consumeth the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore is the anger of the Lord kindled against his people, and he hath stretched forth his hand against them, and hath smitten them, and the hills did tremble, and their carcasses were torn in the midst of the streets. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed swiftly. None shall be weary nor stumble among them. None shall slumber nor sleep. Neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latchet of their shoes be broken. Whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hoofs shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring shall be like a lion. They shall roar like young lions. Yea, they shall roar, and lay hold of the prey, and shall carry it away safe, and none shall deliver it. And in that day they shall roar against them like the roaring of the sea. And if one look unto the land, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened in the heavens thereof. Chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also I heard the voice of the Lord, saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I. Send me.
Okay, everybody, let's go. This is Daniel 11, 37 to 39. This is titled here in this King James Version, The King Who Exalts Himself. Daniel 11:37. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers. This is Donald Trump. All the gods that they honor, all those statues, the hall of statues in the Capitol building, which is the sun god temple, Solomon's temple. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers. He doesn't. Nor the ones desired by women, nor for any other god, because he will magnify himself above them all. And he does. 38. And in their place, he will honor a god of fortresses. In their place. A fortress is a walled fortress. China. The internet. The AI, invisible, omnipresent God now ruling over China and ruling over the whole world, telling all these leaders what to do and when to do it and how to do it. Again, Daniel 11:37 to 38 here. The king will exalt himself. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, nor for the one desired by women, nor for any other god, because he will magnify himself above them all. 38. And in their place, he will honor a god of fortresses. China's AI god, it is controlling all the people, tracking everything, behavioral systems. If you don't take part with your biodigital metric ID that they have there, you're out of the system. This is the mark of the beast, people. A god his fathers did not know, with gold, silver, and precious stones and riches. Stablecoin. And all the things he's doing with tariffs. He's putting it all He's giving all control of everything into the Stargate. Using Elon Musk, Starlink, the angel with the key to the pit, to tie in the CERN to the outer atmosphere with Starlink and bringing in the Stargate. As it is written, Satan will set himself in the land of the north, or the place of the north. That's Washington, people. The king of the north. The god of fortresses is the king of the south, Xi Jinping. The lawless one and the 666 man. When America goes down and the law is taken away, all the world will go into BRICS, and the 666 man will then be running the world by biometrics. And in the place he will honor a god of fortresses, a god his fathers did not know, with gold and silver and precious stones and riches. He will attack the strongest fortresses, China and Russia, with the help of a foreign god. AI, playing the trade game, is getting rid of the IRS and having the External Revenue Service, all this stuff. He's giving all this power, and he's going to give it the power of life. When you mingle your DNA and your biometrics, along with your face and your thumb and your fingers, the mark of the beast, in and become transhumans. He will attack the strongest fortresses with the help of a foreign god and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him, making them rulers over many and distributing the land for a price. Let's go through that again. 39. He will attack the strongest fortresses, Russia and China, and everybody else with BRICS, with the trade, with the help of a foreign god, Stargate, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge them. You see how he lets everybody talk? Elon Musk gets to talk. Ellison gets to talk. He lifts them up and puts them right in front of him. He honors them, gives them honor, making them rulers over many and distributing the land for a price. End of story. There's another clear-cut prophecy down. I'm in no rush, and Satan's not winning by getting me off the internet. December 15th is the notice I got. You'll see it in my live earlier today where I'm showing you on screen. They're giving me till December 15th to do the biometric, and I'm not doing it. I hope you'll take my videos and download them and upload them and share them, or do what you want. I really don't care. I've done my job. At this point, I don't see anybody really doing anything. The whole world should be on fire. But that's okay. I just did my job. What you people do is no repercussion on me.
And he said, Go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate, and the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten. As a teil tree, and as an oak, whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves, so the holy seed shall be the substance thereof.
Thus Solomon finished the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of the Lord, and in his own house he prosperously effected. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent to the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. And as for you, if you will walk before me, as David your father walked, and do according to all that I have commanded you, and shall observe my statutes and my judgments, then will I establish the throne of my kingdom according to as I have covenanted with David your father, saying, there shall not fail you as a man to be ruler in Israel. But if you turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I pluck them up from the roots out of my land which I have given them, and this house which I have sanctified for my name will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among nations. And this house which is high shall be an astonishment to every one that passes by it, so that he shall say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house?
Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more, the merchandise of gold and silver, and precious stones, and of pearls, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men.
Acts chapter 7, verse 47. So Solomon built him an house. So Solomon built God a temple to dwell in. Verse 48. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest? So here we can clearly see God does not dwell in temples built by men. When Solomon fell, he began to worship the goddesses of his wives. This is written in the book of 1 Kings. So he built temples also to the goddess Ashtaroth, or Ishtar, whom is Easter, the goddess of fertility. This is where the dome architecture on Solomon's temple came. The Freemasons have record of Solomon building goddesses of fertility temples for worship. Hence why the U.S. Capitol, which is formed after Solomon's temple, has the dome. The Most High distinguished himself clearly in opposition to these other gods by telling Solomon, you can't build a temple that I can dwell in. This is 2 Thessalonians. So verse 3, it reads, let no one deceive you in any way, for it will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness, the son of destruction, this is Donald Trump, is revealed. He will oppose and exalt himself above every so-called God or object of worship. So he will seat himself in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. The temple of God Donald Trump seats himself in is the same temple that Solomon built, which can't seat the one true God. And he is erroneously claiming to be God. The Freemasons worship Satan in these temples built by Solomon. Solomon's temple is a synagogue of Satan. This is fact.
Most important election in the history of our country.
The most important election of our lifetime.
Most important election of our lifetime.
This is the most important election.
Most important election.
2008 is.
This is the most important.
The most important election.
Most important elections in our.
One of the most important elections
You've ever voted in your entire life.
In our lifetime.
Our lifetime.
The single most important election.
This is the most important election in history.
The most important election in this nation in 50 years.
The most important of all choices.
One of the most vital in the history of America.
This time, vote like your whole world depended on.
If you've ever been to the Department of Justice building in Washington, D.C., then you know that it is like a temple. There are carvings in the walls above windows that say things like, "Where law ends, tyranny begins." Above the massive doors on this temple, it says, "The place of justice is a hallowed place." Hallowed, sanctified, consecrated, venerated, sacrosanct. Hallow is defined as to make holy, to set apart for holy or religious use, to consecrate, to treat or keep as sacred, to reverence. Some very high language being employed.
Here in the V's we find vote, from the Latin votum, or French volere, principally an ardent wish or desire, a vow, a prayer. Principally an ardent wish or desire, a vow, a prayer. A prayer. Ecclesiastically, a short petition, a prayer, in general, as one offered to the faithfully departed, also aid and assistance. So it's the perfect analogy to putting the broken pieces of Humpty Dumpty back together. They just can't do it. Vote, votary, which is a vow or promise, consecrated by a vow or promise, one devoted, consecrated, or engaged by such a vow or promise, especially one devoted, given, or addicted to some particular service, worship, study, or state of life. Addicted, that's interesting. We need to have more than one perspective on voting here.
Here is the freest democracy in action. The aged and young bring the cross-section of the people to the expression of their will in an atmosphere of calm domestic purpose.
In several different senses, voting isn't merely casting a decision on a ballot, but casting one's will, casting a wish, and expressing or signifying the mind, will, or mere preference, and done with the same kind of superstitious devotion of a votary offering. In literally willing one's vote, one is giving consent and joining in a wish or vow. The definition suggests that.
Wishful thinking was shot.
Wishing candidate A into power by casting a vote, then, is a powerful form of consensus building. It's more than a mandate. It has all sorts of binding powers tied up in it. Dictionary flip, consent. To feel together, to agree in opinion or sentiment, to be of the same mind, to accord, to concur, to indicate a willingness, to yield to guidance, persuasion, necessity, to give assent or approval, to comply, acquiescence, voluntary accordance with what is done by another, compliance, approval, permission. Dictionary flip. Will, the power of choosing, the faculty or endowment of the soul capable of choosing, of the mind on what to do or not to do, in preferring or selecting one of two or more objects, the choice which is made, a determination or preference which results from the act or exercise of the power of choice, a volition, the choice or determination of one who has authority. Think about that. A decree, a command, thy will be done. A strong wish and inclination, desire, purpose, power to control, dispose, or determine.
I'd like to begin my presentation today with some quotes about the U.S. Capitol as a temple of ascension or apotheosis. We begin with this quote that's inscribed in the House wing of the Capitol in the 1830s. It's by Rufus Choate, who was a congressman from Massachusetts, who said, "We have built no temple but the Capitol. We consult no common oracle but the Constitution." These are religious terms that are being used to describe a civic building, the U.S. Capitol, as a temple, and the Constitution as a divinely received oracle or manuscript. An 18th century poet named Benjamin Russell envisioned the Capitol's dome in his tome, The Birth of Columbia, which was published on December 3rd, 1788. He writes, "Behold, the federal dome, majestic rise, on lofty pillars reared, whose ample base on firm foundations laid unmoved shall stand, till happy your unnumbered circles run, the temple of celestial liberty, who designs from heaven to bless our happy plains." This expresses the belief that the U.S. Capitol was conceived as a temple of celestial liberty, a star temple that was there as a shining beacon, whose design was brought from heaven to earth to stand as a beacon of light for hope and liberty. Congressman James Wilson of Pennsylvania prophesied in 1787 that America's new federal government would, quote, "lay a foundation for erecting temples of liberty in every part of the earth," unquote. Again, telling us that the founding fathers and the founders of America believed that the U.S. Capitol was in fact a temple that was divinely ordained to spread freedom throughout the world. Thomas Jefferson, the Capitol's chief visionary, called it the first temple dedicated to the sovereignty of the people. This had never happened in human history before, where a nation was founded that was dedicated to liberty, freedom, and the sovereignty, the ascension of the individual. An anonymous essay of 1795 described the Capitol building as a temple erected to liberty. So you get the idea over and over again. This profound concept is pulled out of the imagination of Jefferson and rendered in stone in the nation's capital. It would be unbecoming, says John Adams, the representatives of this nation to assemble for the first time in this solemn temple without looking up to the supreme ruler of the universe and imploring his blessing. This is President Adams speaking on November 22nd, 1800, opening the second session of the Sixth Congress in the new Capitol building. So over and over again, these men are telling us that the Capitol is a temple and America is a divinely ordained nation. These words are more than poetic. The U.S. Capitol, in fact, has numerous architectural features and other features that unquestionably identify it with ancient temples. So the stone construction and underground entrance, chapels, an image of a deified being.
An image of a deified being.
George Washington, as we'll see in a moment. Religious imagery, symbols and inscriptions, divine proportions, sacred geometry, massive columns, palpable spiritual energy, acoustic trickery, terrifying guardians who today carry automatic weapons, mystic visitors, closed doors, private members, secret chambers, and especially an orientation to the sun tell us that the U.S. Capitol is in fact a temple. Specifically, the founders of the Capitol Temple likened it to Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. And this is a key to understanding the symbolism of the U.S. Capitol Temple. Here we see Solomon's Temple with a domed roof and obelisks from a Masonic songbook from a Grand Lodge in England. Now, here's the thing. Judeo-Christian end-time prophecy envisions the construction of the third Temple of Solomon, the first two having been destroyed in ancient times. And they believed that this new temple would be associated with the coming of the Jewish Messiah or the Messianic era. And in Christianity, this, of course, is the second coming of Christ.
You're waiting for them to build some temple over there in Jerusalem. It doesn't say that. Oh, there's a temple. And it's sitting on 7 hills on the water that will be flooded in prophecy by the Freemasons, Solomon's Temple, Washington, D.C., the White House, and all the surrounding buildings. If you go and get some kind of a decent drawing or picture made of the temple, you'll see it's like a square building and a square building in the middle. But if you can get one where you can look inside, you will find the buildings, the A-frame with the pillars, and you'll find a little dome. You're going to find everything within those 4 square walls. You're all waiting for things that are already here.
This rendition of Solomon's Temple is envisioned with a dome. The Bible says nothing about a dome on Solomon's Temple, but yet the Masons were clear in their artistic renderings of Solomon's Temple that in fact it was domed. In this rendering from England, we see the pillars out front with the domed Temple of Solomon looking rather like a beehive, in fact. And what we see here is Christ giving the keys to Peter, and in the background we see Solomon's Temple. And in fact, it is domed. What Perigino shows us here is not only a domed Temple of Solomon, but also that dome sitting on an octagonal platform. The domed Temple of Solomon on an octagonal platform. I want you to remember this because when we later explore the diagrams of the U.S. Capitol, we're going to see that it too, the dome also sits on an octagonal platform. And here's the detail. Now here's the U.S. Capitol in 1830. We see the east entrance here with the dome as it then existed on top. Now let's compare that with Perigino's painting in the Vatican. You can see they're virtually identical structures. And one wonders if, in fact, the Founding Fathers actually got the design off of Perigino's painting in the Vatican. Raphael also painted a domed Temple of Solomon. Here is the marriage of the Virgin. We see Mary with Joseph, and in the background, we see the domed Solomon's Temple, this time with a polygonal base. And here is that polygonal base with the domed roof. Now, coming back to the Capitol, we're going to look at how that dome was actually placed on top of the Capitol. It happened when Abraham Lincoln took office in March 1861. At that time, America was on the verge of a bloody civil war that would have devastating consequences for the first term of Lincoln's administration. It was Lincoln who was destined to put the Solomonic Dome on the Capitol. In fact, on the Capitol lawn at Lincoln's inaugural, visitors could see the model of the Statue of Freedom, the goddess Freedom, that was destined for the top of the Capitol. Here we're looking at Thomas Eustick Walter's watercolor, his visualization of the dome. When Congress saw this watercolor, they instantly funded construction of what was called the new High Dome. And as the construction unfolded, a question began to emerge in the minds of visitors and everyone in Washington, and that was, what would be painted on the interior or the oculus of that dome? And here we see Walter's rendering of a possible vision of what he would see in there. We see Freedom, who is also destined to top that dome, Freedom being the goddess of America. Here is the plan of the dome from 1863, also by Philadelphia architect Thomas Eustick Walter. And here's where we get this correspondence with Solomon's Temple. Because look what we see here is we have this octagonal platform upon which the dome would sit. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to compare a line drawing of the octagonal plan of the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, where we see the octagonal plan with the sacred rock, the foundation stone, in the center. Now, let's compare the line drawing of the Dome of the Rock with this drawing by Walter of the new high dome. And what we see is that they're virtually identical, if not interchangeable drawings. In fact, what we can do is we can take the plan of the Dome of the Rock and superimpose it over the plan of the new high dome, and we have a new perfect match. So here what we're looking at is a Masonic interpretation of the U.S. Capitol, not just as a Masonic lodge, but also as a rebuilding of Solomon's Temple. And what happened is that as the Civil War began and people began to die and blood was being spilled, some urged Lincoln to devote the Capitol building funds to the war effort. Lincoln, however, insisted on continuing the construction of the new high dome as a symbol of the hope for the future of the Union. And so here we see this painting from inside the congressional side of the Capitol of Lincoln posing almost like a magician. You can imagine him willing to raise that high dome and with it to raise America's future and to take us forward. So here we're looking at photographs of the rising of the new high dome. And we see it rising in majesty here as they're preparing now to put the cupola on the dome. It continues to rise until in 1864, 1865. Finally, it's completed, and we have the Statue of Freedom placed on top. Inside the dome, of course, is the Capitol Rotunda, which is a large circular room that's located in the center of the Capitol on the second floor. It's 96 feet in diameter, so it's quite a large room. It's the symbolic and physical heart of the U.S. Capitol. It's also the ceremonial center of the United States of America. In this extraordinary room, magnificent room, is where powerful American ceremonies take place. It's a place of ritual. And here we're looking into the entranceway used by congressmen and senators. The beam of light is actually headed towards or beaming towards the center of the rotunda. And in the center of the rotunda is this gold dot. And this is going to become very important later in our exploration, so make a note of that. And this is, in fact, me standing on that gold dot in the center of the rotunda, looking up into the oculus or eye of the dome. Here I am looking now from the top-down view. We're high in the dome now, and we're looking down into the rotunda where we see the gold dot in the center and the various paintings and statuary that inhabit the rotunda. And the gold dot in the center. Now we're even higher up into the dome, and it's starting to appear in our imagination almost like this place is a gateway of sorts. And that's what we're going to see this place actually is. And now we're finally high up in the dome, looking down into the rotunda. More directly, the rotunda, as I noted, is a place of American ritual. Rites are performed here. Statues such as the one of Washington and Jefferson and present-day Ronald Reagan are unveiled here. Inaugurations used to take place here. Eminent citizens lay in state in this rotunda. In fact, it was the assassinated body of honest Abraham Lincoln, the first president to be assassinated, which has forever hallowed this spot. And it's quite a poignant recognition to realize that it was Lincoln who willed this high dome to be constructed, not knowing that his assassinated body would soon lay in state in this place, making it sacred ground for all Americans. And here is a diagram, or a painting rather, of Abraham Lincoln laying in state in the rotunda. What would happen is visitors would file along Pennsylvania Avenue and then come into the Capitol and then make a circle around the president as he lay in state in the rotunda. Crossing cultures, let's talk about the dome here and its significance. The dome is a cosmic symbol. It's equivalent to the stupa of India and China. A stupa is a Sanskrit word that means heap. It's a mound-like structure containing Buddhist relics. And its hemispheric shape represents the world egg and the womb. Domes, of course, are feminine, and they're considered to be gateways into other worlds or perhaps other dimensions. And what happens is that in Buddhism, the relics are placed inside the stupa, and they symbolize the seed of life or the seed of rebirth. It's a very key idea here as we begin to interpret the U.S. Capitol dome as a temple. Later, the stupa became a symbol of the Buddha's final release from the cycle of birth and rebirth. Now, let's think about this in terms of what happens when we lay our deceased presidents in state in the center of the rotunda, in the center of this stupa. The stupa and dome actually create a spiral or a vortex of energy that spins around a central axis. So whether we're in a Buddhist temple or in the U.S. Capitol temple, we're actually in a vortex created by the design of the dome. This is the intention of the dome, is to create this spiraling vortex or axis of energy that assists actually in the rebirth of those who are placed in the rotunda. Now what we're actually looking at here is Gerald Ford, President Gerald Ford's body, laying in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. Look at that view of this vortex. You can't tell me by looking at that you're not getting an idea that this place is in fact designed as a portal or a gateway. And now, just imagine the effect. Now we're looking down here at President Ronald Reagan's body laying in state. We see people entering into the rotunda. And what do they do when they come into the rotunda? Well, the answer is that they actually circumnavigate or navigate the body laying in state. They're in a vortex. The body is laying in the center on the gold dot, in the center of this axis of energy. And what do people do as they walk by? They direct prayer energy at the body of the deceased president. Now, what kind of effect would you suppose that might have on the spirit or soul of the president? You have to imagine that they are actually infusing their spirit or soul with this powerful prayer energy in this vortex. And you can almost imagine that if the soul is still close to the body, that then it is then actually ascending through this cosmic spiral or gateway. Here's a key thing about the Capitol and the dome and the stupa, is that the dome symbolizes the cranium. Dome, of course, is slang for the head. So in fact, the dome of the U.S. Capitol is actually symbolic of our own dome, our own consciousness. And the object of all arcanum is to trigger the latent capabilities within our consciousness and transform us into free or sovereign beings. So lo and behold, the dome of the U.S. Capitol actually encodes this entire process in stone for those with eyes to see. And the key thing here is that, again, the U.S. Capitol is a temple that was conceived as the temple of celestial liberty, the temple where free and sovereign beings could learn the process of ascension and even resurrection. So this is me inside the Capitol Visitor Center, standing in the dome, pointing at the painting in the oculus now of the dome, the apotheosis of George Washington, and recognizing that what we have here is one of the most incredible temple structures conceived anywhere at any time on Earth. So now, let's take a look at the painting in the oculus or eye of the dome, the apotheosis of George Washington. The painter is Constantino Brumidi, who came from Italy in the early 1840s. And Claire is going to talk with us momentarily in detail about Constantino Brumidi and how he came to conceive this painting and what it meant to him and possibly his intention behind creating the apotheosis of Washington. What we're actually looking at here is one of Brumidi's studies for the apotheosis of Washington. That word apotheosis is very important, very, very insightful. It means to deify, to raise from a man to a God-man, or to transform an ordinary human into a divine being. And so Brumidi's given basically free rein to paint anything he wants in the oculus or eye of the dome after it's completed in 1865. What does he paint? He shows us Washington surrounded by divine or celestial beings. He's ascended into the heavens. And what Brumidi does is he includes the arcing rainbow to indicate that Washington has achieved the ascended state. Brumidi actually prepared this study of the apotheosis for Thomas Eustace Walter, the architect of the Capitol, who liked it enough that he took it to his Germantown home in his residence in Philadelphia. So as we continue here, we actually are going to recognize that Washington is under the rainbow and surrounded by celestial or star beings.
Washington is under the rainbow and surrounded by celestial or star beings.
Brumidi actually did a second study for the apotheosis. The second study had been lost for a long time until it was finally recovered in 2012 and is now in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. So this is the second study for the apotheosis of Washington. This time, Washington is not under the rainbow, he's on it. Now this is extraordinary because Brumidi is delivering a very clear message here that Washington is not just a man, he is now a deified being. In fact, in his description, in Brumidi's own description of this painting, he describes Washington not as the father of the United States, but rather the savior of America. Major distinction. Clearly putting a layer of religiosity onto Washington. He also puts, intriguingly, 72 stars around the apotheosis, creating a gate, a stargate, in which this painting would be viewed. 72 is one of the most important numbers in all of esoteric numerology, symbolizing not only the number of degrees in astrology, but also the number of the names of God, and also the number of the jinn, or the demon spirits that Solomon was said to have controlled with his ring. So what we see here is Washington on the rainbow, still surrounded by the celestial or the star beings. We know they're celestial beings because they've got stars on their heads. And also, this is a heavenly scene. It's not an earthly scene. Actually, when you take a tour of the Capitol, the Capitol guides will try to tell you that these 13 maidens that surround Washington symbolize the 13 original colonies. Well, but that can't be, because we're not on earth, guys. We're in the celestial realm. We're in the heavenly realm. So what do these 13 maidens symbolize? We'll answer that question momentarily. Just for now, we're familiarizing ourselves with the iconography of the apotheosis of Washington and recognizing that Constantino Brumidi is showing Washington as a divine being, the savior of the country. In his final rendering, which is what we see today in the oculus of the dome, we see this magnificent painting, full-blown, come to life. So what we're doing now is we're in the rotunda, we're looking up into the dome, and we see the 72 stars forming the star gate surrounding the apotheosis of Washington. Brumidi has made a couple of modifications to his fresco here that become very important to us as we decode this painting. And as we continue, we're going to pull back the layers and reveal the incredible message that Brumidi has encoded within this painting. So for now, let's just zero in on this and take a moment to more greatly familiarize ourselves with what we're seeing here. So here as we're spinning around the painting, looking at it from different views, what we're going to see ultimately is Washington enthroned on the rainbow with fame and liberty on either side of him, And here again are the 13 maidens, now again with the stars on their heads. These are celestial or star beings that surround him. But why only 13? We'll come back again to that in just a moment. And as we tour around the painting, and in the detail, we see Washington with his purple robe on. We see Fame blowing a trumpet, indicating a sound or vibration is present. And we see Liberty holding the fasces, wearing her Liberty cap. These are the goddesses of America. And most people today don't realize the number of goddesses that are present in early American iconography. Not only is there liberty and fame and freedom, but there's also a goddess named America who's on the east entrance to the Capitol. And you know what? She's wearing a cloak of stars and a star crown. She's another one of the celestial beings that is believed to be divinely guiding America. What we notice behind Washington is the open sun gate or star tunnel behind him as well. Here in the detail, we see the 13 maidens, the 13 star maidens, and we notice that they're holding a banner in their hand. It reads, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Let's look at this example here. This is Washington as a Freemason from 1866. Take a look at this here, where we have Washington in full Masonic regalia, standing on a Masonic matrix. There's a ladder, which is actually Jacob's ladder, extending from his shoulder. On the ladder are written the letters F, H, and C, which symbolize faith, hope, and charity. But that's by far not the most interesting aspect of this painting. As we follow the ladder emerging from Washington's shoulder, we see faith, hope, and charity, and then we see this strange rainbow burst coming out of the sky. Now, some would take a look at that and say, well, that's got to be a UFO that's present there. That's actually not a UFO. What we're seeing here is a rainbow rip in the fabric of space-time. But even more and beyond that, I'm going to propose to you that what this represents is Washington's ascension into what we're going to describe here as a rainbow body being. What we're going to see as we continue is that Washington was eulogized as Enoch, the translated man whose body was dissolved into rainbow-colored light and then taken into heaven by the Archangel Michael. I believe that that's exactly what this rainbow burst symbolizes, is Washington's transformation from a man into a divine being, just as happened with Enoch. And while it may seem arcane, the apotheosis of Washington was a popular theme among artists after Washington's death and until the Civil War. What this means is that for a period of about 60 years, it was widely believed that George Washington ascended into the heavens just like Enoch, just like Jesus. Now, that's an extraordinary statement to make, but it's actually made by these artists and reflects a commonly held belief after the founding of America and after the death of Washington. And this explains why Washington was directly connected, not just with Enoch, but as we'll see, directly connected and equated with Christ as an ascended being. What we're looking at here is an engraving by J.J. Bareillet around 1800. It's based on a sermon delivered by Simon Chaudron after Washington's death, equating Washington to Enoch. Are they trying to say that Washington is a reincarnation of Enoch, or that he was simply like Enoch in his ascension? This is a bold statement that this artist is making, again, based on this sermon. Washington is shown here raised like Enoch and Jesus from the tomb upon a shaft of light by spiritual and temporal beings, in this case, genius and also immortality. So here we see Washington being lifted up by these divine celestial beings, being raised into heaven, into the heavens, on a shaft or beam of light. The Bible tells us that flesh and blood cannot inhabit or inherit the kingdom of heaven. What this means is that Washington must have been transformed in this belief system. He is no longer a flesh and blood man. Instead, he has now somehow been translated is the term they use in the book of Enoch, or transformed into a light being. Wow, what an incredible story. Here's the Apotheosis of Washington. It's by David Edwin. It's after the famous Philadelphia artist Rembrandt Peale. We see Washington being once again lifted into the heavens, ascending into the heavens on a beam or shaft of light, being assisted by celestial beings. An angel places a wreath of immortality on Washington's head. Why do you do this unless you believe this is what happened to Washington? Otherwise, it's totally sacrilegious to equate Washington with Christ. Are you kidding me? They must have had a deep sense that Washington had this profound spiritual transformation or translation into a celestial being. This image here, the Apotheosis of George Washington, is from around 1860. It's by H. Weishaupt and Samuel Moore. It's presently in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. It's where we see Washington once again being lifted into the heavens by celestial beings, divine beings with stars on their heads, indicating they are star beings. Now, there's no other way to interpret this except that we're talking about the belief here that Washington was translated into heaven by celestial beings. So, did in fact an angel or a star being manifest before or shortly after the death of Washington and lift George Washington into the heavens, placing him beside Christ on the heavenly throne? It's an extraordinary concept to wrap our heads around, but the artwork is clear that this was the reigning belief. All the way up until 1865, we had this belief, and we finally get to this postcard that was a popular item actually at the funeral of Abraham Lincoln. It's a fine carte visite of the apotheosis of Lincoln. Now we have the belief that Lincoln also ascended into the heavens, where he was greeted not by Christ, but rather by George Washington. Now, this is absolutely extraordinary to think that Lincoln was also drawn into heaven, into the heavens by a celestial being, this time George Washington. Extraordinary. This is a detail from a larger image, an engraving that has angels in the sky to the left, and it's from my private collection. So what we're left with here is this belief and this artistic expression that George Washington, like Enoch, like Thoth, like Osiris, like Christ, ascended into the heavens where he dwells as an immortal and celestial being. Now that's an extraordinary thought. I have a special surprise for you now. In the conclusion of this part of Arcanum, I'm going to offer you a guided tour of the U.S. Capitol. It's one that I did several years ago when you were allowed actually to enter the Temple of Celestial Liberty and wander around basically at will. Ever since 9/11, there's been a bit of a clampdown on the average individual's ability to wander the People's Temple, as the Capitol is also called. So what I'm going to show you is something that probably will not be able to be duplicated any time in the near future, what with the security precautions now in place in the Capitol. So for the next few minutes, let's enjoy together my personal tour of the People's Temple, the Temple of Celestial Liberty. We're standing on the east side of the United States Capitol. Most people don't know that the United States Capitol is a temple. That's right, it was conceived by Thomas Jefferson as a temple of sovereignty. There were poems written in 1793 describing it as the Temple of Celestial Liberty. The Temple of Celestial Liberty, is this a stargate? Is this a star temple? It absolutely is. And when we go inside, we're going to see the example of a deified being floating in the dome of the rotunda. That deity is George Washington, who is portrayed on a rainbow in a heavenly scene. So let's go inside and find the real lost secrets in this temple. We're in one of the most special places in the Capitol that few visitors actually get to visit anymore. This is the tomb of George Washington. This was the place where George Washington and his wife Martha were originally going to be buried. But as you can see, Washington's tomb is empty. Historically, we know that he's buried at Mount Vernon. There was a trust issue with his estate. However, when we look at the Capitol from the perspective that it's a portal or a gateway, Washington's tomb plays a very interesting role. Washington's tomb is empty because actually George Washington is on the ceiling of the rotunda. He is portrayed as a heavenly being. He's portrayed as having ascended, risen from the tomb, just like in the story of Jesus. Now, when we're in the tomb here, what we're looking at is the catafalque upon which the sarcophagus of all of the dead presidents has been laid. The United States Capitol has been considered hallowed ground ever since Abraham Lincoln's assassinated body laid in state in the rotunda on the catafalque that is now on display in the Capitol Visitor Center. The interesting thing about this is that when we look up at the apotheosis of George Washington and draw a direct vertical line from the sun, the open sun gate behind Washington, and we go down straight through the gold dot in the center of the rotunda, straight through the white star in the center of the crypt, one story beneath it, directly beneath it, is this tomb of Washington, leading some of us, including myself as a researcher, to wonder, is this some sort of a mystery initiation that could be enacted in this room? Is this sort of like the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, which is also empty? In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh would lay in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber and would visualize himself traveling out of the pyramid into the stars, into the heavenly realms. And you can just imagine Masonic rituals being performed in this Masonic lodge, because that's what the Capitol is. It is literally a lodge. You can visualize them in this room, attuning themselves with the heavenly realms and visualizing themselves traveling through the white star one story above, through the gold dot one story above that, and then up through the sun gate in the apotheosis of George Washington. We're in the crypt of the United States Capitol. What's fascinating about this is that this is a civic building. Civic buildings don't have crypts. Temples have crypts. Churches have crypts. Cathedrals have crypts. But this building has a crypt. Why? Because the United States Capitol is actually a temple. Thomas Jefferson called it the Temple of Sovereignty. When it was built, there were poems written calling it the Temple of Celestial Liberty. So this makes the crypt a very important room. It's one story above Washington's tomb and one below the rotunda. When we look at the crypt, we're seeing 40 magnificent stone pillars that are modeled after the Temple of Poseidon in ancient Athens. The reason why the Temple of Poseidon is so important is because the Founding Fathers were members of the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, secret societies that believed that America was the new Atlantis. Poseidon was the priest king of the original Atlantis. So by building the crypt in the model of the Temple of Poseidon, they're paying homage to the original priest king or founder of Atlantis. When we go into this Temple of Poseidon, at the very center of Washington is this amazing white star. It's called the Seed of Washington. All the mile markers for Washington, D.C. are measured relative to this Seed of Washington. It's a very powerful symbol, and when we stand on it, we are experiencing this amazing acoustic effect. My voice is literally reverberating off the columns, and I hear an echo inside my head. If I were to go right straight through this chandelier, through the ceiling, I would be in the rotunda of the Capitol, one story above me. Just above that is the open sun gate in the apotheosis of George Washington. So standing on the crypt here is a very powerful spot. Now we're in the most special place perhaps in all of America, maybe even the whole world, the rotunda of the United States Capitol. Right here is the gold dot in the center of the rotunda. And again, when I stand on this, my voice is amplified 5 or 10 times. I hear it in my head and it's reverberating all around this dome and inside my own dome. Remember, one story beneath us is the white star in the center of the crypt. One story beneath that is Washington's tomb. And here we are now on this gold dot, looking up at George Washington, the founding father of America, as an ascended being on the rainbow in front of the sun gate. The reason why Washington's tomb is empty is because he is risen. He is in the heavenly realms. He's gone through the stargate, the circle of stars, the 72 stars that surrounds the apotheosis of Washington. Now, what I like to do is to lay on my back and just look up at George Washington in this magnificent building and allow the energy of this dome, of this Stargate, to literally just fill my consciousness. George Washington is not alone when we look up there. He has goddesses around him. He has 13 star maidens that surround him. In addition to that, he's got 5 gods. The 5 gods of alchemy, of earth, air, fire, water, and space-time surround him. And what Constantino Brumidi, the painter who painted this magnificent painting, tells us is that the way that we become a risen being is to harness the power of those elements within us, to balance those elements, and then by then doing so, we can literally achieve this transformative consciousness that's embodied here by George Washington. It's a stunning experience to sit here and just allow this place to seep into you and recognize how truly free we are and how fortunate we are to be able to live in a country that allows these freedoms. So I'm just going to sit here and concentrate and focus and meditate on the energy of this place and visualize myself, just like George Washington, rising through that gateway right up through the sun gate into the heavenly realms.
Most important election in the history of our country.
The most important election of our lifetime.
Most important election of our lifetime.
This is the most important election.
Most important election.
2008 is
This is the most important.
the most important election.
Most important elections in our
One of the most important elections
You've ever voted in your entire life.
In our lifetime.
The single most important election.
This is the most important election in history.
the most important election in this nation in 50 years.
The most important of all
One
choices.
of the most vital in the history of America.
This time, vote like your whole world depended on.
And this is where it's an important point that the government does have very real power, and the powers written in the Constitution have been greatly exceeded. There's a lot invested in especially the executive branch, but the entire system of the federal government. So there's real power there. The problem is that the idea of our voting for our leaders or changing things through voting is extremely illusory because of the degree to which the strings are pulled behind the scenes. The fact that we can't face up to that makes us all the more limited because as a people, we keep on voting, hoping to finally get the change we need when we're not addressing the root issue and the reason why the input never seems to match the output. It's a failure to recognize the real levers of power. The psychology about groups strongly suggests that the ephemeral ideas of hope and change and the power of belief and all these other terms, that they provide their own feedback value to the crowds of followers. And even though this process is thoroughly disconnected from the political reality and the people come up empty most of the time, they willingly do it in exchange for political power that tips the dynamic in favor of the ever stronger big government. People get to identify with different ideologies. They get to feel included. They get to feel important and self-righteous. They get to feel involved and active in the political process. And though that becomes a scam or a trick, an illusion, a grand deception, it's an important type of energy, and people do long for that. I think that's why you see the level of participation that you do. And the hopium can clearly lull a population to sleep just as much as divisive issues can bombard different demographics of people with distraction issues that rile them up and use up their energy and their anger, and then in turn provide a convenient target to receive the blame from the other side, from the other demographics. Typically, a scapegoat of some kind is produced every cycle, every 4 years, arguably to keep people from uniting or collectively focusing on the biggest and most important parts of the problem. The things that are happening at the top of the pyramid where most of the power is concentrated, well above the petty offices that are visible, that are immediately in the face of people. The ill-begotten powers that be work hard to manufacture this consent. All of this is tailored to suit the needs of the system, but to pay homage, to pay lip service to the needs of the people. There is a need to fulfill and satiate the drives of the governed, and the system does have to address that at some level, but it's not as it seems. The process is not straightforward. It's a game of mirrors. It's a funny carnival ride. The anger and the outrage is part of it too. It's all directed towards some useful end. Complementing this cyclical contest of gladiatorial blood sport and fake wrestling candidates is an obviously coordinated effort to suck off the vitality of the remains of the nation, to collect and trap your willpower like a Ghostbusters device, to nudge you with perception, ideas that you assume you adopted through free will,
ideologies you assume you adopted through free will but are actually a result of hidden messages,
to provoke and poke at your emotions, and to vent some kind of steam. It's a steam valve, the collective anger and outrage that otherwise would threaten to topple the system if it were allowed to fester too long, if it were allowed to explode with pressure. And it's also, in many ways, to harvest the clicks and likes of our lives, including in the pre-social media period, and to accumulate the currency of our attentions. Regular people may not have much say, after all, on who's elected, what laws are made, how public monies are spent, or how power is wielded. But we don't have to give our consent as well. We don't have to wish for it. We don't have to consent to it. We don't have to give permission and a mandate for it. That's the difference. Withdrawing consent, refusing to endorse a bad system, not voting, can be a protest of the futility of the process of voting. Though, conversely, pure apathy can be its own trap of non-action. Nevertheless, refusing consent and disengagement from the system circumvents a loop of reinforced energy that otherwise serves to perpetuate these deeply corrupted institutions and their milieu of bad candidates, false saviors, and misleaders. I would still caution against the philosophy, common to many voters, of so-and-so being the better choice this time around, the lesser evil, the only choice given these two bad choices, and then just going for the vote anyway.
Hello, everybody. We're going to do this real quick. We're going to go through, and you're going to see the temple, and it's built, and it's beautiful. Please watch, those of you who will watch a lot of my videos, I have a lot of different clips of the Antichrist, the lawless one, they're separate, the angel with the key to the pit, and so on and so forth. I mix and match. But they are all relevant, so you're going to see everything mixed and matched coming into the temple now. And which one of these is actually sitting on the throne. It's unbelievable.
Chapter 2. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things? And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.